Have you ever imagined having thousands of tireless workers on your farm who never demand daily feed, don't need their pens cleaned every morning, and actually produce one of the most highly valued and sought-after foods on the planet? Liquid gold, otherwise known as honey, is just the tip of the iceberg in the fascinating and highly profitable business of beekeeping. Today we're breaking down exactly how to become a successful beekeeper from scratch. We'll uncover the hidden structure of the hive, the real profitability of this business, the best bee breeds for beginners, and the biological secrets nobody tells you. If you're looking to diversify your income with a sustainable, highly scalable, and truly passionate project, this video is your ultimate step-by-step guide. Let's get started. When we talk about raising livestock, most people immediately think of poultry, pigs, or cattle. With traditional livestock, the cost of daily feed and facility maintenance eats up a huge chunk of your monthly budget, directly slashing your profit margins. Beekeeping completely shatters this traditional agricultural model. Honeybees are the ultimate free-range livestock. From sunrise to sunset, they fly out every single day, foraging for nectar, pollen, and water up to 2 miles away from their hive. This means your daily feed cost is practically zero as long as you place your apiary in an area with decent floral diversity. That's the main advantage and the reason why the mid to long-term ROI is so incredibly attractive for homesteaders and rural entrepreneurs. But it's not just about the honey, which, by the way, has the amazing chemical property of never spoiling if extracted and stored correctly. A well-managed hive allows you to massively diversify your income streams. Throughout the year, you can harvest and sell beeswax, propolis for the pharmaceutical industry, protein-rich pollen, and royal jelly. You can even rent out your hives to other farmers who desperately need pollination services for their orchards. And if that wasn't enough, selling nukes, which are small, established starter colonies, becomes a massive cash cow once you master the art of splitting your own hives. However, like any honest business venture, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You absolutely need to know the full picture before investing your hard-earned cash. The main barrier to entry here is the upfront cost of the equipment. You need to buy high-quality, kiln-dried woodenware, frames, wax foundation, stainless steel hive tools, and of course a heavy-duty protective suit. Because let's face it, the risk of getting stung is a constant reality you'll have to live with. Before you even think about buying your first bee, it is biologically and strictly mandatory to confirm that neither you nor anyone working alongside you has a severe, life-threatening allergy to bee venom. On top of that, you have to understand that this business relies entirely on the whims of Mother Nature. If you get hit by a prolonged drought or unusually heavy rains, tree blooms get delayed. The blooms will be completely washed out, leaving your bees with zero nectar to forage, and you'll be forced to spend a small fortune feeding them artificial syrup just to keep them on life support until the sun comes out. To minimize all these risks and curveballs, your first real step toward success isn't going out and buying suits or wooden boxes. It's fully understanding how the most organized and complex society on the planet operates. Inside a beehive, there is zero anarchy. It's a strict hierarchy, governed by pheromones and highly specific tasks that you need to learn to read like an open book. At the absolute heart of this society is the queen bee. She is the mother of every single individual inside that box, and her one and only vital job is to lay eggs. During the peak spring honey flow, she can lay up to 2,000 eggs a day, just to keep the population booming. The queen emits a constant chemical scent, her pheromone, that keeps the colony glued together, organized, and working with a shared purpose. If the queen gets too old, then her laying drops off. If she gets sick, or if she's accidentally crushed during a hive inspection, the colony instantly spirals into chaos. If the worker bees can't manage to raise a new emergency queen in time, that entire colony is tragically doomed to collapse. Surrounding this vital monarch is the true, tireless engine of the business, the worker bees. These are infertile females who take on absolutely every single heavy lifting job inside and outside the hive. What's fascinating is that their jobs change drastically as they age. In their first few days of life, their bodies are adapted to be cell cleaners. Then, their glands develop, and they become nurse bees, feeding the newly hatched larvae. A few days later, they transition into builders, secreting tiny wax scales straight from their own abdomens to build out the comb. After that, they become guard bees, stationed at the hive entrance, defending their home to the death against wasps, mice, or robbing bees. Finally, in the last and hardest stage of their short but intense 45-day life, they become foragers. These are the battle-hardened veterans that fly out into the open field, braving the wind and the sun to collect the nectar they'll eventually turn into honey. Understanding this biological life cycle is crucial for your success. When you pop the lid off a hive, looking at the ratio of nurse bees to foragers will tell you exactly what stage of growth or decline your colony is in. Finally, rounding out this social structure are the drones, the male bees. They're big, bulky, they don't have a stinger to defend themselves, and they don't forage for food. Their one and only imperative mission in life is to mate with virgin queens from other hives during spectacular mating flights, ensuring the genetic strength and diversity of the species before dying in the act. Speaking of genetics, the breed or lineage of your bees will largely dictate your learning curve and your overall experience in the bee yard, especially as a beginner. In the modern commercial beekeeping world, there are several proven genetic lines, each with very distinct pros and cons. The Italian honeybee, for example, is world famous for being an absolute honey-producing machine. They build incredibly massive populations, and above all, they are exceptionally gentle. It's a forgiving bee that stays calm on the frames when you inspect them, making it the ideal, almost mandatory choice for beginners looking to build their confidence. On the flip side, you have genetics like the Carniolan bee. These guys are outstanding at surviving harsh winters by strictly rationing their food stores, and they have a highly explosive population boom the second they spot the first spring flower. However, they do have a flaw. They are much more prone to swarming and abandoning the box if they run out of space. And of course, in many parts of the Americas, it's impossible not to bring up the Africanized honeybee. This particular genetic line, the result of an experimental crossbreed that escaped decades ago, is an absolute tank. They are highly resistant to pests, rarely get sick, and work relentlessly, flying out in light drizzle or incredibly early in the morning to pull in massive, consistent honey crops. But their highly defensive behavior is legendary. At the slightest provocation, loud noise, or vibration, they can launch a massive coordinated attack. Keeping them requires the beekeeper to have flawless handling techniques, extremely smooth movements, and top-tier protective gear. As a modern breeder, your long-term goal is to source and raise genetically selected queens that offer you the perfect sweet spot: high honey production, disease tolerance, and a temperament that actually lets you work in peace. Once you wrap your head around the genetics and the complex social structure of your future workforce, you need to strategically prepare for the right time to start. Beekeeping is a strict business of exact timing and syncing up with the floral calendar. The absolute worst financial mistake you can make right out of the gate is buying bees in the dead of winter or during a long rainy season. The golden moment, the perfect window of opportunity to set up your first apiary, is late winter or right at the dawn of spring, about 4 to 6 weeks before the major floral explosion in your area begins, an event beekeepers call the major honey flow. Starting at this exact time guarantees that your young bees will have a natural, fresh, and abundant food supply out in the field. This allows them to draw out waxcomb at top speed, stimulates the queen to pack the brood box with eggs, and most importantly, gives them plenty of time to pack away the massive surplus of honey that you'll be harvesting later on. Knowing exactly when to take the leap, your next big decision is how you're actually going to get your first bees. A lot of beginners make the mistake of getting swept up in the excitement and setting out empty bait hives in the woods hoping to catch free, wild swarms flying by. While it's a traditional and free practice, you're essentially playing Russian roulette with genetics. With a feral swarm, you have no way of knowing the true age of the queen, you're completely blind to their level of defensive aggression, and you run the massive risk of bringing hidden diseases or heavy mite loads straight into your bee yard, ruining your investment. To guarantee a home run and start with rock-solid foundations, the smartest, safest, and most professional route is to buy what we in the industry call a nuke, directly from a certified, highly reputable breeder in your area. A nuke is basically a perfectly balanced miniature hive. It usually comes in a small cardboard or wooden box containing 4 to 5 deep frames packed with life. These frames already include capped brood about to hatch, growing larvae, vital stores of honey and natural pollen, a tight cluster of worker bees keeping everything warm, and the most valuable asset of all, a young, vigorous, newly mated queen with proven genetics who is already fully accepted by her daughters. When you buy this nuke and carefully transfer those 5 frames into your full-sized, permanent wooden hive, the bees instantly feel like they have a massive, clean space to expand into. That feeling of abundant space, combined with the energy of a young queen and the onset of the spring nectar flow, triggers an explosive growth rate that is so fast and efficient, it will drastically cut down your learning curve and put you on the fast track to your first, highly anticipated honey harvest. Once you've got that valuable nuke in your hands, the next critical step that will define the future of your investment is exactly where you decide to set up your new hardworking business partners. The location of your bee yard can't be left to chance. Bees are creatures of precise habits and are highly sensitive to their physical environment. A solid spot for a commercial or hobbyist apiary has to meet 3 non-negotiable golden rules: isolation, water resources, and strategic orientation. First off, your boxes need to be in a quiet area, far away from constant foot traffic, pets, heavy machinery noise, or strong vibrations that will keep them in a chronic state of defensive high alert. Second, and this is a secret many beginners ignore until it's too late, bees consume industrial amounts of clean water. They don't just drink it. They mainly use it to regulate the internal temperature of the hive during those scorching summer days through a highly sophisticated evaporative air conditioning system. If you don't provide a nearby water source, they'll waste all their vital energy flying miles to find it in muddy puddles or livestock troughs, which drastically cuts down their nectar foraging. And third, the direction your boxes face is absolutely vital. The main entrance has to point straight toward the morning sun. Catching those early rays of sunlight is the perfect biological alarm clock, getting your foragers out foraging and working the blooms hours before the midday heat dries up the nectar. Plus, your wooden boxes should never sit directly on damp soil. You need to put them on sturdy metal stands or cinder blocks to isolate them from moisture rot, and coat the legs with heavy grease to create an impenetrable barrier against massive ant invasions. With the house ready and perfectly positioned, the moment you open a hive to check on your queen or move frames requires you to put your fear aside and take total control of the situation with the right gear. In beekeeping, safety isn't optional, it's the #1 rule of survival. You should never approach a colony without suiting up properly. A good, thick, full-body bee suit, preferably in light colors because dark tones irritate the bees by reminding them of the fur of their natural predators, paired with a sturdy veil to protect your face and neck, and long leather gloves are your first line of defense. However, your most powerful and indispensable tool in the bee yard isn't your suit, it's your smoker. This simple metal cylinder with a bellows attached is the beekeeper's magic wand. By pumping cool white smoke made from dry leaves, clean cardboard, or chemical-free wood shavings, you temporarily block the alarm pheromone receptors of the guard bees. The smoke triggers a false forest fire emergency, forcing them to gorge themselves on honey in preparation to flee. A bee with a belly completely full of honey physically cannot bend over to sting you easily. They become docile and sluggish, which lets you work in total peace. Right alongside your smoker, you should always have your hive tool in hand. Bees are obsessive engineers, and they seal every tiny crack or empty space in their box with Propolis, an incredibly sticky, rock-hard resin. Without this steel pry bar, it would be absolutely impossible to separate the wooden frames to inspect them without making jerky movements and accidentally crushing bees. And crushing a bee is a fatal rookie mistake that instantly releases a strong smell of overripe bananas, the chemical signal for the rest of the colony to launch a massive attack. Even with the best handling on your end, beehives are factories pumping out highly sought-after food in nature, which makes them a constant magnet for all kinds of predators and silent threats you have to fight off relentlessly. On a physical level, besides ants, you'll have to protect your boxes from toads that just sit at the entrance gobbling up exhausted worker bees returning from the field, from insect-eating birds, and even from small rodents. When the winter chill hits, mice will look for the warmth of the hive and the sweet wax to build their nests, absolutely destroying your frames in the process. But the true terror of modern beekeeping, the global public enemy #1 that can wipe out your entire investment in a matter of months if you're negligent, is a microscopic parasite called the Varroa mite. This reddish mite works exactly like a giant tick latched onto the bees' bodies, feeding on their fat bodies and transmitting lethal viruses that deform the wings of newly hatched pupae and completely collapse the immune system of the whole colony. The only real guarantee you have for keeping a strong, healthy apiary ready to produce honey on a massive scale is staying on top of preventive Varroa control. This means doing regular mite washes, applying organic treatments like oxalic acid or thymol at the exact right doses, and selecting genetics that show hygienic behavior, meaning bees that actually know how to groom themselves and their sisters to get rid of these parasites. If you manage to master your location, keep diseases in check, and build your colonies to maximum strength during the nectar flow, you'll reach the most rewarding and highly anticipated moment of all this hard work: harvest season. Extracting liquid gold is an art that requires patience and know-how so you don't ruin the final product. The biggest rookie mistake is impatience, pulling frames full of fresh nectar that still looks and shakes out like water. The bees need weeks to dehydrate that nectar by fanning their wings day and night until they drop the internal moisture level down below 18%. You will know with absolute certainty that the honey is ripe and ready to be harvested only when you see the bees have sealed every single hexagonal cell with a thin layer of pure white wax, a process known as capping. If you harvest uncapped honey, the excess moisture will inevitably cause it to ferment in your jars, completely ruining the taste and making it unsellable. Once you're inside your extraction room, totally free of bees, you'll use a heated knife to carefully uncap that virgin wax and load the frames into a centrifugal honey extractor. This stainless steel machine spins at high speeds, slinging the pure, crystal-clear honey against the walls through the sheer physical force of rotation. This brilliant piece of engineering lets you return the fully intact wax comb right back to the hive. Giving back-drawn comb is a masterstroke for profitability. You save the bees the monumental metabolic effort of having to secrete brand new wax from scratch, allowing them to focus all their energy and resources on refilling those empty frames with a fresh honey crop in record time. The final step to crown all this agricultural effort is turning that harvest into cold, hard cash through smart marketing. While you can absolutely sell honey in bulk in 55-gallon drums to commercial packers, the real gold mine, the massive profit margin that truly multiplies your investment, is in bottling and selling directly to the end consumer. Packing your honey in sterilized glass jars, with clean, professional labeling, lets you stand out in a market heavily saturated with artificial syrups and adulterated honey. You can charge a serious premium if you offer monofloral honeys, meaning honey harvested during a very specific window where a single bloom dominated, like orange blossom or eucalyptus. This creates highly unique, exclusive flavor profiles that premium buyers are more than willing to pay top dollar for. On top of that, by processing the leftovers from your extraction, you'll get blocks of premium cappings wax that you can melt down and sell to natural cosmetics manufacturers or luxury artisan candle makers. This guarantees that absolutely nothing goes to waste on your farm, maximizing the financial return on every single drop of sweat you poured into your bee yard. Beekeeping isn't just about dropping a wooden box in the woods and waiting for the money to magically roll in. It is a deep commitment to observation, discipline, and constant respect for the unforgiving laws of nature. Throughout this journey, we've discovered that financial success in raising bees doesn't depend on owning hundreds of acres of land or buying expensive daily feed. It relies entirely on your ability to understand the fascinating biology of the hive. You must pick the right genetics for your environment and apply flawless management strategies to protect your workforce from pests and harsh weather. When you master these core pillars, you transform a swarm of insects into a relentless engine of agricultural profitability. They become capable of generating multiple sustainable income streams through honey, wax, pollen, and colony splitting, all while playing a vital role in the pollination and survival of your local ecosystems. If you're willing to learn their secrets, take a few inevitable stings, and work in perfect sync with the floral calendar, the bees will reward you tenfold, proving that this truly is the most efficient and incredible agricultural business you could ever start. What part of this fascinating world seems the most challenging to you? Is it battling the pests, or maybe the final honey extraction? Drop your questions down in the comments because I'll be reading and replying to every single one. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming masterclasses, and smash that like button if you got value out of this video. To your success, fellow breeder. Until next time.